You're creating a couple of discarded pieces of junk into a story, into a memory. And so that's pretty much the core of all my work, really, is to tell a story and turn inanimate objects into something that has meaning and beauty, pretty much. This one I call Gravity's Angel. And so how this came about was a friend of mine in Utah who I work with, him and his wife, they both lost their significant others. And then of course met each other through the church, which was really cool. Remarried. And they're just a wonderful couple. But what Joella does, his name is Gray and her name is Joella. What Joella does is every anniversary of his previous wife's death, she gets him a something, whether it's a piece of art or something to remember her by. Joella called me and said, would you like to do a piece for Gray for the upcoming anniversary of the death of his previous wife? Of course, it jumped all over that. It's like, yeah, I would love to do that. So, trying to think about, how to transform or how to create a piece that is editorial, but also beautiful, tell the story, but then also something that's decorative and beautiful. I just gravitated towards doing doing feathers. And one of the things, and so basically these two feathers, one is chrome, and one is from a chrome bumper, and the other one is from a lawnmower blade. And so I fashioned these two pieces together, and the reason why one's chrome and one is the lawnmower blade, as you can see, one's it's got the contrast, right? Is to show the progression of healing and of life. It's pretty powerful. So to be able to create a piece for him to represent that was really fulfilling for me. It was great. I love birds, as you can see. I've got nests. I collect nests and I collect feathers. Being in this area, there's feathers all over the place. My dad loved feathers. Every time we'd go fishing together, he'd find a feather and stick it in his hat. So the feathers is kind of a thing that I've slowly started to kind of evolve towards. 2-3 years ago, over in Roslyn, the utility company, one of the guys that worked at the utility company called me and said, we've got all this metal, just come over and take what you want. And I'm like, great. So I went over there and they had stacks of guardrails from the highway, from I-90, old guardrails. And of course I took them. The patina on these things were just unbelievable. But then once I've got them, I realized that they're really, guardrails were made for a reason, to stop cars and trucks. So it turned out to be a really overwhelming thing to try and make into something. So they sat there for 2 or 3 years, and then I realized after looking at them for so long, it's like, those things look like feathers to me. So I've started to beat these things down and turn them into feathers. And the editorial story behind that, as you can imagine, it's like, here's these bulk structural things to stop, moving cars and trucks, and to be able to transform that into the lightness and the delicateness of a feather is the story. I'm passionate about ravens. I'm also passionate about indigenous cultures, especially Native Americans. The spirit of the raven is just great. We have families of ravens that I feel have a relationship with me based off of the way that they fly around me when I'm out in the yard, the fact that they're still nesting here. Incredible animals. One of the things that is consistent in my work, especially when I'm doing birds, is the lawnmower blades. Because I have access to a lot of them, because a good buddy of mine is a groundskeeper at a golf course, and they go through blades like nobody's business. They're also easy to work with. I'm able to carve them up, grind them. That is an incredible piece that I found up the street. It's an oil barrel that someone crushed to throw away. And it has all the original paint on it. So it's got that great blue patina. And it's basically, and when I found it, the way I set it down, it's like a perfect stand. So this is a great example of creating pieces. Again, not only is it the story of the subject, it's the story of what the elements are that made that subject. To be able to come up and look at it, I mean, that was one of the things that I loved about showing at Roslyn, is that they look at these pieces and it's like, oh, I remember that tool. That tool's pretty cool. You know, I remember those, because a lot of the tools and stuff that I use have been sitting in ditches and, you know, junkyards for years. The majority of the tools were given to me by a great guy. He's had an impeccable service as a Navy pilot, and now an Alaska Airlines pilot. But a lot of these tools, he and his dad used to own tugboats. And so a lot of these tools are from his dad's toolbox that he just gave me. He's like, you can, you know, you take these and do what you want with them. So drill bits, wrenches, and but I've also got I have some lawnmower blades and other things in there as well. So it's kind of a potpourri of a lot of stuff. But generally, it's, as you can see, it's more tools than anything. Yeah, so those are all truck shocks. Yeah, I've got a ton of truck shocks. I get those from my friend Steve up the road, who's a mechanic. So again, it's been really cool because I have a lot of people that are starting to take notice, not only just through admiring the work, but also friendships. And it's like, hey, I got some stuff in my yard. Do you want them? And so that's been a cool connection too, to be able to kind of create some friendships through some of this work. You see the bird in there? My daughter-in-law is from Athens, Greece. And we were on our way, we were going to go to Athens to meet her family for the first time. And so I wanted to create a piece for them as a gift to welcome us into their country. And so, of course, the bird was what I was going to go for, because I really do love doing the birds, and I can see myself doing birds for a long time just because I love birds. But this piece was, it needed to be compact so I could fly with it. And so what that piece is a old meter cover from city water. So I'd say it's probably 18 inches square. And the cool thing is you can't really see it in that photo, but the hinge is still on it. So if you think about the frame of a city cover, and then they've got the lid that comes up, I kept that intact. So what you can do is you can do it sideways, and you can open it up and prop it on a desk or a table or wherever you want. So it's got its own somewhat like tripod or way to keep it standing up. So that's the bird, and you can see that the bird are some garden shears. The head is kind of the garden shears. And then the rest of those pieces are just random pieces that I've found in my collection. And they loved it. And it currently lives in Athens, Greece, which is pretty cool. The buffaloes are my bison, of course, I think second in line to loving ravens is the American bison. Very similar to, the Native Americans and how our country, treated them, not only the Native Americans, but how, white American destroyed the bison. And I think it's if anything, this is a tribute to this, to what they represented, not only to the indigenous cultures, but also how amazing these animals are. My wife Shauna and I traveled last summer to Wisconsin for the summer in our camper, and we spent a day, we camped out on a buffalo ranch, and were able to observe the behaviors of the buffaloes, especially when it's a family and how the males protect, how the females collect, and how the babies, the calves. It's an incredible experience to see them as herds. All my pieces start with some element, and so this one started with me driving by Safeway up the hill, and they had in their dumpster a bunch of old display racks that they were going to discard. And the moment I saw those, it's like, oh my God, that could be like the hump of a buffalo. And so I climbed in the dumpster and I took them. Didn't even ask. It's like, what are you going to do? So I grabbed them, brought them back to the ranchette here, and started to create the skeleton of this buffalo with those display racks. And once I had the basic form created, the rest was rock and roll. Just getting pieces, chains, finding snow chains, old chains. Was a great representation of their fur, that compact, curly mane that these buffalo have, exactly. And so that was pretty cool. And then, and then it just came to form. And my mother's, this was actually in some way a tribute to my mom, because my mom has the same passion for bison as I do. She's still living at 92, and I still threaten to tell her that I'm going to put this on her front yard in Arizona. The one thing that I do love about it is the buttocks, the rear quarters of the buffalo are wheelbarrows. Just the perfect shape, because those animals are so powerful, and their back shanks are just really they have great lines. Just they represent power, and so those wheelbarrows were perfect for that. The horn, that is basically a old file cabinet that I ended up cutting and bending and forming into. So that's hollow. So that's literally as you can think, it's like a thin gauge steel metal cabinet that I formed into its horn. Actually, the first thing I started was doing animal mounts, doing heads. So I've done a lot of heads. I've done so many of them that I have this thing on my website where my goal is to do 100 heads, and they all go to charity. In fact, the majority of my work, I donate the proceeds to the food bank here in town. I also do, I donate money to Gallery One in Ellensburg. And then also a good friend of mine runs a charity for Children's Hospital in Seattle. And so a lot of the proceeds from my work go to the Children's Hospital through his organization, which is really cool. But this here, and they all take different forms. I mean, I've got a lot of heads. You can see them on my website. I actually had a show 2 years ago at Gallery One with all my heads, which was really fun. It was just great to get them in a gallery setting so people could see them. This one here is all machine parts, all car and truck parts. These were pieces given to me by my friend Steve Moore up the street. And you can see there's, struts and springs and all kinds of, I think there's an oil pan maybe in there. So there's my elk. That's the very first creature that I created up here, and it all started with the mini bike, dirt bike frame, which was the head. Got wheelbarrows again. This one's got a wheelbarrow ass, for lack of a better thing, just because it's perfect. It's I've got struts. I've got metal. And the cool thing is about this one, and I didn't really notice it at first. My nephew, we had a party up here, and my nephew had seen it for the first time, and he said the thing that he loved about it the most is that you could see through it. So not only does it have the shape and the form of the creature, you can see through it, and you can see the nature come through it. Another great aspect of this elk is that every year there's a nest in it. A bird will build a nest in its head, which is pretty cool. And a lot of these nests that I have here in the studio right now are from the head of that elk. Yeah, struts, bed frames. I mean, anything and everything. I mean, my brother used to be in distribution, and he would drop off, a lot of those companies that would, pack up large things. They use metal bars to support the products inside those, and just stacks and stacks of that stuff he would bring me. Which is great because, it's not only the one thing that I've learned about this is that it's great to it's great to be able to melt metal, weld metal together to create shapes and forms, but it also needs to be structurally sound. So that's one of the things that I've learned in doing this is that a lot of the metal I'll weave in to add structure to it. It's not just metal laid on top of each other. Trying to figure out leg positioning. So in this one here, you can see where I've got a couple legs that are forward and back because I still wanted to get that natural feel of the animal. But then also that's for structure as well to keep it from falling over. Makeshift. Yeah, I'll do makeshift stuff. So if I need to I think the only mechanics that I have that I've used is a come along and then stuff that I prop up. I've got a couple of metals. I'll fabricate stuff to like hold stuff up. I've had stuff fall over, fortunately not on me. And so, yeah, it's been kind of a interesting approach of leveraging. I use a lot of clamps before I weld. So I'll position pieces and clamp them and walk around and look at it. And then if it's in the right spot, then I'll weld it. I'll solidify it and weld it. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I haven't killed myself, but yeah, I mean, it's ideal. The only person I use, which is Steve Moore up the street, is he's my crane guy. So he's the guy that lifts my stuff. You probably saw my moose, which is over in Roslyn. He craned it over there for me and we placed it. My parents provided me with the ability to stay creative because because that's what I did best. Just explore, right, and be intrigued by simple things. Always look for stuff. Don't take things for granted. It's just, I mean, the secrets. There's so many secrets to our world that are hidden out of reach. You got to take that time to go find those things and to search for them.